Hello YouTube, my name is Jack, welcome back to Barnyard Wargaming and another video today where I tell you a little story about a tournament that I went to. Now this tournament was called New South Wales Masters, and if you are unaware, this is a Sydney, Australian based YouTube channel all about 40k. If this is your first video you've ever seen, hi, welcome, good to see you. But in the New South Wales area, I am more or less the demon guy. And this one was no different, it was New South Wales Masters. That means the best of the best of the best. And there was about 40 people there. I'm gonna tell you about my list, and then we're gonna tell you about the 5 games I played, what I learnt, and what you can experience with Nurgle demons if you're gonna take them to an event yourself as well, and how they shake up in the current meta. Now I know at the moment demons have a very good win rate. I think their win rate's about 55, 58% or something, with Slanesh demons carrying that at like 66%. But before we get on to exactly why I took what I took in the list, let me just first say that if you are looking for any coaching services, we now have coaching services at a greatly reduced price as well. You can get coaching for an hour for 50 Australian dollars, which is about $30 or so-ish American. And on top of that, you also get access to our guide, which has all of the shorts I've been making in order, labeled with additional tips and tricks as well. And you also get access to our TTS events, which run monthly. So if you want to support us in what we do, and you want to get some extra notes and tips and tricks on how to play competitively, especially with demons, I can help you out with that a lot. But for any army, if you are looking to play competitively, I can give you the tools that you need to win. On top of that, if you like any of the models that you see here, we also have a commission painting service. My lovely partner Adela, she does commission painting. And we also have R&R hobbies for an additional 5% off all of your Warhammer sales and goods over there as well. If you want to go buy something, I suggest you go take it from R&R. All the links to everything will be down in the description. Our Discord is free to join, and all of those good things. Like, subscribe if you enjoyed today's video. So for my list, I took a Great and Clean one, naturally. Feel No Pain Aura is really good, Rotigus for that +1 damage, and then obviously you had to take a couple Plague Bearers to fill out your ranks, get some Battle Line in there, and make it really annoying for people to clear you off points because they're just a lot of OC, they have sticky, so I took 2 units. And the reason I took 2 units of 10 instead of like 5 units is because I'm not really a fan of just spamming the board. I like to have some damage in my list, and so I included 2 Nurgle Soul Grinders. The Soul Grinders get an additional AP for being nearby the Great and Clean one, and that works in shooting as well from the Font of Spores enhancement. This means that I have 2d6 plus 2 shots blast with indirect at AP2 2 damage that can kick out a fair amount of firepower and make people really question whether they want to get too close or not. On top of that, the Soul Grinders actually give me a lot of melee potential. Something like Angron is going to think twice before just charging into my ranks, because obviously I'm not going to let him hit the Soul Grinders first, and then the Soul Grinders are going to hit back with 10 attacks at d6 plus 3 damage. On top of this, I also had a Demon Prince right in the middle. Now he gives the enhancement, the Droning Shroud, which that means if I verse a shooting army, my whole army is essentially going to be stealth and lone up. So if you get too close, it's going to be -1 to hit, and if you're too far away, you just can't shoot me at all. It makes those really open board matchups super easy because you just walk into the middle and you say, come on, come close to me, and then I will charge you and kill you. Especially with the stratagem to make your Plague Bearers move 10, which you can then just countercharge their lines and bog them in melee while your Great and Clean ones and your Soul Grinders catch up. On top of this, I have 2 units of drones to give my army 4 rerolls to wound. I have Epidemius to give 4-up invulnerable save. I have a Bile Piper with the enhancement Canker Blight. This enhancement is really funny, and I'll bring it up later on as to why, but essentially if anything fails Battle Shock within range of him, instead of doing the mortal wounds, you can just say a model in the unit is killed. Now, you can't do it to monsters and vehicles, but that doesn't mean that you can't do it to mounted units. The last couple of things that I took were mainly just for screens and scoring, and that is 9 Nurglings, a unit of 6 and a unit of 3, mainly so I can separate them out and make a big screen so that melee armies will be -1 to hit me, and also shooting armies won't just deep strike all of their stuff all over the board, and then a single unit of Flesh Hounds. Now the Flesh Hounds basically do the same thing as 6 Nurglings, they're exactly the same price, they're relatively similar in terms of the footprint that they take up, but the good thing about the Flesh Hounds is that you can sit them in a corner and then later on, if the enemy doesn't have any uppy-downy shenanigans and they've put all their models on the table with Deep Strike, then the Fleshhounds can actually start playing the game by moving 12 inches, and they can go and do an action, they can go and charge something. They're just a really annoying unit to have in the back of your board. The last little bit of tech that I had was 3 individual Poxbringers. Now, this is fairly costly as an investment. It is 165 points for those 3 models, and they are T5, 5 wounds, 5 up invuln, 5 up feel no pain, but they are really good. And the reason is, not only are they so tough, especially with stealth aura and lone up aura, but also they give off a aura of -1 to battle shock tests within 6 inches. Now that means that all of your battle shock shenanigans that you're going to be doing with this detachment are going to be at not only -1, but -2. If you can stack that with Canker Blight, then you can be picking up Deathwing Knights if they fail their battle shock rolls of 8. On top of this, they're just really handy action monkeys, and you can pay a CP to make them move 10. So they actually don't really need to be with a unit. They can just go off and do their own thing. And if, for example, I burst like Chaos Knights, then instead of joining the Bile Piper to that unit of Plague Bearers, I can just leave the Bile Piper separate and put them in the back corner to do actions and whatnot anyway, and I can instead attach a Poxbringer to give lethals on 5s. It makes my list a little bit more varied and better into some of those tougher matchups. Now let's get on to who I played and how did they go. So the first and most crucial matchup I had was round 1. Now round 1, I versed a lovely chap called Nathan. I versed him once before at an event, and he is pretty much the best World Leaders player that we have. I wouldn't be surprised if he's #1 World Leaders player in the Southern Hemisphere. I'm pretty sure he is #1 in the Oceanic region. He's a damn good player. The last time I versed him, he was playing World Leaders into my Death Guard at an event, which I have put out as a previous video, and I kind of just screened him off the board and then just slowly took the table and won barely. I think it was 12-8. In this game, I learned a valuable lesson about time. I did lose 12-8 to Nathan, and I will tell you exactly why. I was actually ahead in this matchup, and I should have won. But what we were doing at this event, New South Wales Masters, is training under a clock. This means that every time you do anything, if you take a save, you can then flip the clock back to your opponent. If you make any decision at all, you flip the clock back to your opponent when you are done. And obviously you're supposed to show this, but really it's up to your opponent to flip it back to you. So what Nathan was doing really well, much better than what I was doing, is that every time he would do anything, he would immediately flip the clock back to me. And this meant that I not only was trying to watch the game, but I was forgetting about the clock. And sure, I would only forget for like 30 seconds or a minute, or et cetera, very small amounts of time. It probably happened about 10 times throughout the game, which means that at the end of the game, I had roughly about like 10 minutes less time than Nathan did. Now that means he played 10 minutes potentially on my time, but that's exactly what you're supposed to be doing. You're supposed to flip the clock back. And at the end of the game, I was so rushed and so stressed that I just made a few crucial mistakes. And the most important one was that I actually ran out of time and I couldn't attack with Epidemius twice. This meant that a single 8-bound on 2 wounds survived to get Assassinate against Epidemius, Engage, and Primary for 5 points instead of me getting Primary. This flipped the game at least 17 points and took it away from at least a tie, maybe even a win in my favor, to a 12-8 to Nathan. This was really heartbreaking for me because I should have won that game, but I just didn't watch the time well enough. In my second round, I versed the lovely Jake, who you've seen on stream and on camera and in my vlogs many times before. He was playing his Corn Demon army, which he's actually picked up after watching me play Corn Demons so much. He is a lovely person to verse, but obviously this was a little bit of a uphill battle for Jake. Not only do I know Corn Demons like the back of my hand, my army is able to just screen the board and make it so that he can't charge anything. I was gonna let Jake charge some Nurglings and then just kill everything that he had. There was actually one really funny moment in this game where I made a crucial charge with a Bile Piper, just enough to get within 6 inches of a Rendmaster and a Skull Cannon to force a battle shock on them in the fight phase. Now, because they are mounted, they both failed and instantly died to my enhancement Canker Blight, which is 260 points down the drain. Now that's an absolute horrible thing to happen, but it was quite funny. I won the game 18-2. The armies were against you, the table was against you. It was not going to be your game. Next up in round 3, I versed another friend of mine, Ben, who you've seen on stream before, and who was also in our Thankmas charity live stream at the end of last year. Ben is a CSM and Orcs player, and today he was playing his CSM. Now this was a very close game, and honestly I think my biggest regret is I didn't push forward fast enough. I was very hesitant to give anything away and just move out into the open because his units do a lot more damage than mine. Now I think playing so cagey meant that he could use his Veterans of the Long War ability to pick a unit every turn and just delete it. If I was a bit more aggressive in my playstyle and forced him to make some horrible decisions about what things to kill and what not, then I might have just won the game on points even if I had died towards the end of the game. I lost this game 11-9. So close in terms of team scoring, and was yet another lesson to me as to why I need to be less afraid and push forward in those CSM matchups. There wasn't really much to be said about this game. It was a fairly close game overall. We played in corner deployment and you can see all the scores here. But yeah, I think I just should have pushed forward a little bit more, and I was probably too hesitant to get out in the open because he had 2 predators and he had a lot of units that were just going to advance and charge forward and just delete me with super scary characters. Now, that was the end of day 1 and I was not very happy. I had lost 2 out of my 3 games and 2 of them were very avoidable defeats. I should have won the first one and probably I should have won the second one. I just was in my own head. So going on to day 2, I was hopeful to try and get 2 more wins out of this and go at least 3-2, but I was dreading it. I was very nervous. My first game was against Orcs, the new tactical brigade, which is also not a great matchup for me. I took a 35-point enhancement in my army so that I could avoid some shooting, and yes, although Orcs do have tactical shooting, I went against World Eaters, Khorne Demons, and CSM who only had 2 predators, and now I'm going against Orcs that had weapons with anti-monster, anti-vehicle 4+ in melee, and a huge brick of flash gits that could just move like 20 inches and then deploy and get out and shoot anything that I had. Luckily for me, poor Andrew rolled absolutely horrendously. He had 2 units of Breaker Boys charge each of my Soul Grinders at different stages of the game. He hit me 16 times, and then on 4-ups to wound with anti-monster, anti-vehicle, he rolled 3 wounds. Now, I don't want to be like, I'm amazing and I won this game because I'm so good. It was pretty much, I won this game because Andrew diced himself, which is just very lucky for me, and I got out of that Orcs matchup scot-free with a win 14-6. It was also on a rather rough deployment where he could just control the board by shooting a lot of my stuff off the middles. There wasn't anywhere to hide, and a lot of my stuff just got stuck behind walls. I didn't make too many mistakes, but I reckon I could have played this also a little bit better, and the only reason I really won is because I got a little bit lucky. But no complaints here. I had lost 2 games already, so I was okay with winning this game, and we went on to the last game of the weekend. The last game I played against Chaos Knights. Samantha was a really lovely opponent and asked so many questions about playing demons because they knew that I was just the demon guy, and so wanted to ask questions about Slaanesh demons and how I was finding the Nurgle demons. So it was a really nice game to play at the end of a very stressful weekend. Now, unfortunately, Samantha charged a Lancer across the table on turn 1 into a unit of 6 Nurglings, and then didn't kill them, which meant that they were just trapped there with their Chaos Knight Lancer in the middle of the board. Now, in my turn, I did kill the Lancer, which then exploded and did 36 mortal wounds to my army. Luckily for me, because it is Chaos Knights and there were other armigers that were also within range of my army, because all of my units had now taken damage, they all then had to take a battle shock test in the next turn, which meant that I healed them all. In fact, Samantha also had the Changeling, who my Plague Bearers charged into, and Epidemius only had 1 Plague Bearer left in his unit, but I just sat in combat with the changeling for the rest of the game, healing myself because I was within my own shadow and I could just pass a battle shock test every time I attacked the changeling to get D3 models back. It was really funny. Now I did win this game 15-5. I think I could have played it a lot better. I was very sloppy with my moves, but overall, it was quite a bad matchup for Chaos Knights. So after having 4 bad matchups for me, I was very content with having my last matchup not only be a lovely opponent, but also be a rather easy matchup going into Chaos Knights. That meant that at the end of the weekend, I was 3-2, and overall, I was okay with the result. I ended up 10th, which is actually tied 9th. I tied points exactly with the person in 9th place, which was actually Ben, my round 3 opponent. So technically, 9th place overall out of 40 players is not the worst outcome to have. And moving forward, I think my biggest takeaway is going to be, if you play with a clock, make sure that you are very attentive to your time. That was the biggest takeaway for me for the whole weekend. Overall, how do I feel about Nurgle Demons? Well, because they are very, very one-dimensional in the fact that you are playing Nurgle or Slaanesh or Tzeentch, all of these Grutmist detachments basically mean that you're going to be doing one thing. That kind of means that you're going to be really good into some matchups and really bad into others. It's a teams style list. If you can choose your opponent, it's great. If you can't choose your opponent, you might struggle. That's why I included these soul grinders to reduce the efficiency of those bad matchups and kind of swing them back the other way. I think Nurgle overall is actually a lot more competitive than people give it credit for. Would I recommend this for a singles list? Well, yes, if you like Nurgle Demons a lot, I recommend that you take something similar to my list, definitely with the Soul Grinders, Rodigus, Unclean One, Epidemius, Demon Prince, etc., etc. And I reckon you should take that to your local events and give it a whirl. But with that said, I hope that you enjoyed today's video. If you haven't yet done so, please like and subscribe. Make sure that you follow the channel and help us out where you can. If you want to become a Patreon and get some coaching, definitely go check it out. We have the guide there. We also have those TTS events, and the signups for March are now open. If you want to get onto our Discord, all the links are in the description down below. And if you want to get some of your own models commission painted as well, I very, very strongly suggest that you do so. Otherwise, go check out R&R Hobbies for all of your hobby goodness and needs over there. And I shall see you in the next video. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.